Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming to you again. Had to do double duty today because there was a ton of news. I probably could do 3 or 4 of these videos, but I'm only going to do this second one tonight. I got the University of Oregon hat on, and so we're going to talk about a political topic with this one, and it's the one that is the most important political news of the day. It's J.D. Vance being selected as Trump's running mate. So, who is J.D. Vance, and is this a good, indifferent? What ought we think about this? Well, J.D. Vance is the junior senator from Ohio. He won his election in 2022, beating Tim Ryan, a popular congressman from Ohio, and beating him by 6 points. Now, it's worth noting that in Ohio, Tim DeWine, the governor, ended up beating his opponent by upwards of 20 points. And so he's not universally loved among Republicans, at least not Republicans in Idaho, but enough, certainly. And he has made a name for himself as a vociferous Donald Trump loyalist in the Senate. Uh, he is, along with Josh Hawley, probably the two most MAGA senators there are. And it's odd, a little awkward, because 8 years ago, J.D. Vance was virulently anti-Trump. He was a never Trumper all the way through the 2016 election. I think he was never Trumper all the way until the Wednesday after the Tuesday when he realized that Donald Trump won the damn election. And he wasn't going to be shut out of his ambition just because the wrong guy won the election. He's going to go ahead and change his approach to things to conform with the guy who won. What I'm trying to say is J.D. Vance is one of the Donald Trump supporters that is a simple cynic. See, Donald Trump supporters tend to have, well, I guess I'll say two, maybe three. We'll go with two types of Donald Trump supporters. There are the true believers who actually buy into the culture of MAGA and the Trumpisms, and then there's the cynics. And the cynics are the ones that come in two flavors. The cynics like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell are willing to support Donald Trump to get their policy preferences through. Mitch McConnell certainly never approved of Donald Trump ever, but he wanted his judges. And so he did what he had to do to get his judges. Similarly, Paul Ryan wanted his big tax reform, and so he did the same. That type of cynic is going more and more and more extinct as Donald Trump sticks around because Donald Trump rightly realizes that they're not loyal to him. They're loyal to their ideas. I mean, just because being loyal to an idea is kind of an American thing to do and being loyal to a politician is kind of an un-American thing to do means that Donald Trump's going to go with the un-American thing for sure. Loyalty to the politician, not loyalty to an idea. But, I digress. The second flavor of cynic is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance wants power. And he wants it probably because he thinks he's the right guy to have it. Probably thinks that he'll do the best job with it. And that is what motivates, I think, most politicians. Most politicians are interested in power because somebody's got to have it, and, well, it might as well be them. That type of healthy ego is a prerequisite to getting involved in politics. Now, J.D. Vance has also decided to become very cynically strategic with how he gets there. If his current ideas aren't popular enough to garner him power, he'll simply change his ideas on a dime if necessary, and with some fervor. It's obviously a rational strategy. It's a good strategy. It's the same strategy that most right-wing political talk show hosts use to enrich themselves. I don't think Sean Hannity is as nutty as he sounds on TV. I listened to him quite a lot during the Bush years, and he was conservative, but he wasn't nuts. Now he's kind of gotten off the deep end. A biggest example of this is Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson went from being a just right of center, standard kind of Reaganite conservative to being a Vladimir Putin fanboy. And it was about his cynical ability to make money. He learned that if he played this character on TV, he got rich. He likes getting rich. And so that type of cynic is akin to what J.D. Vance is done here. And part of me kind of blames him and part of me kind of doesn't. That cynicism is standard fare for politics. And if you're playing at the highest level, well, It's like finding gambling in a casino. So let's talk a little bit more about J.D. Vance from a political perspective, because, if Donald Trump wins, he'll be one heartbeat away from being president. How terrifying is that? And the quick answer is it's not that terrifying. J.D. Vance is qualified to be president of the United States. He's a U.S. senator. He went to Yale Law School. He overcame an incredibly difficult childhood. Read Hillbilly Elegy. That is a good book to get to where he's at. He served in the military. I mean, he would be the first president who had served in the military since, George H.W. Bush, I guess. I mean, George W. Bush served in the Air National Guard, but come on. So he is qualified to be president. He would be a far better nominee than Donald Trump for the Republican Party presidential slot. And I have no doubt that J.D. Vance would wipe Biden out. If the Republicans just want to be sure that they win, well, they should nominate J.D. Vance. There are some downsides to J.D. Vance's political preferences. He, time to time, channels the old Ohio Republican Party of isolation of the 1930s. He believes that, to the degree possible, the United States' foreign policy should end at its shores. It should retreat into splendid isolationism, an idea that was in vogue at the founding of this country. There was a real standoff between Hamilton and Jefferson, Hamilton being the internationalist and Jefferson being the isolationist right at the very beginning. So this debate has roots, and he is on what I think history has proved to be the wrong side of it. Not that at the founding of the country it wasn't a reasonable debate, but technology has made the debate, well, it's ended it. The ability to transport military force across the oceans just has gotten better and better and better and better, to the point where you're not even transferring like soldiers, you're transferring rockets with nuclear warheads. No, you cannot be an isolationist considering the state of technology in this world. And yet there is this deep ingrained temptation among Americans to just assume that if we let them live, they'll let us live. How naive, how genuinely cowardly is that? And you see J.D. Vance ringing that bell. He particularly likes to ring that bell about Ukraine. He thinks that Russia conquering Ukraine, frankly, he said, quote, frankly, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. Well, he's wrong about that. Of course it would affect the United States. It would make the world a tremendously more dangerous place. The reality is, when these types of historical arsonists like Napoleon and Caesar and Hitler get going, and Putin, I think now we can say he qualifies to be mentioned in the same breath as those other folks, it's cheaper to stop them early. It's cheaper in blood and in all that treasure that J.D. Vance wants not sent to Ukraine. Well, if we don't send to Ukraine, we're going to send more. And we learned that. We learned that we learned it at the beginning of the 20th century. The World War I would have been over, or maybe not even started, if the United States had been participating in the alliance system and providing a deterrent. World War II certainly wouldn't have been the human catastrophe that it was if the United States had intervened sooner. The Germans were pathetic. The Germans in World War I were a lot stronger than in World War II. It took the Allies being just weak sauce for the German economy to absorb France and become big enough to be a world threat. But if the United States had been there, just hanging in the same alliance it was in 20 some years earlier in World War I, well, the Germans, if they tried, they would have lost. It wouldn't have been close. And so it's cheaper in blood and treasure for Americans to stay engaged with the world. And that is what was in 1946 called the Washington Consensus. It was the guiding centrist principle for both political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. The last gasp of J.D. Vance style foreign policy died in 1952 when Eisenhower beat Arthur Taft for the nomination for the Republican president. There hasn't been another person in the executive branch, including Trump, who has disagreed with the post-World War II Washington Consensus for 72 years. And now J.D. Vance is bringing it back. I don't think he is crazy, though. I think that he will not allow his ideological preferences to override the practical realities of the world. And it doesn't matter how quickly JD Vance would want to withdraw from the world, or hide under his covers or stick his head in the sand. You can't unwind the American global system within a single presidency. You probably couldn't do it within two presidencies. There are treaty obligations that have the force of law, and there are abilities to enforce things through federal courts. I mean, you're gonna end up having a mess trying to implement the type of strategy that JD Vance wants to. But one thing he could do is he could make sure that Ukraine loses and Russia wins. Unlike some Republicans who I think actually have some sympathy for the Russian, viewpoint on the way the world ought to work, no gays, men drive the household, the idea that misogyny is good. There are some Republicans who believe that stuff. I don't think J.D. Vance is one of them. I think he honestly believes that the United States can make their strategic decision to retreat from the world. I honestly think that that's nuts, but at least you can argue the point with a rational person. And J.D. Vance is a rational person. So this is all to say, he's probably the person that I would have asked Donald Trump to pick last among the finalists of the Veepstakes. But boy, you start comparing anybody to the top of the ticket and you realize, okay, yeah, let's do that. Anyway, it's just a thought. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments down below. Leave me a like, hit that subscribe button if you could, and just know that I really appreciate you. Thanks.